Good afternoon, y'all. My name is Major Joshua Berry, and this is Chaplain Timmy Henson, and we are just here to do Marriage Monday virtually. It is something that we have had near and dear to our heart for some time and just hadn't been able to sit down and do it because we were really hoping that we would be able to open back up and do this in person and feed you physically and mentally and spiritually. But it looks like we're just going to be able to talk to you over video this time.
Absolutely.
So today we just wanted to take a minute to have a conversation with. We know right now a lot of us are just at home with our families, and then we're going to work and coming back, and there's a lot of stressors that are put on our families that are not normally there. And one of the biggest breakdown points that we talk about in the military as well in our relationships is communication. And so, Chaplain, if you want to lead us off, just talk a little bit about communication and how we can better communicate with our spouses and all of those in our lives.
Absolutely. So, Major Barry, first of all, I would like to start off with us being assertive. A lot of times, miscommunication can come about when a spouse is not being particularly assertive, being open and honest with his or her spouse to let them know exactly what it is that they need or expect out of a relationship. And then it is left to a person's perception or perspective. And that perspective or that perception may be off. Mm-hmm. And so there's a great need just for a person just to be open and honest and say, hey, here's what I'm needing, here's what I'm desiring, or I would like to see more of in the relationship.
And so the next thing that we wanted to talk about was active listening. Active listening can be something that you use with just anybody that you encounter. And it's one of the things that we as human beings don't do the best, because when we start to hear things, we stop listening to what the person is saying and we begin to formulate our response to whatever's being said. So active listening is really just having a conversation with the person in front of you and just hearing them, what they had to say, not judging what they're saying before you've heard it all, and not formulating what your response is going to be in that process. So it's just listening and saying, what I've heard you say is this. And the thing that you will find when you start the active listening process is there are times that you will repeat back, as I just said, this is what I'm hearing you saying. When you start to repeat back what they've said, sometimes you'll say something and you say, is this what you said? And they'll say, no, that's not what I said, or that's not what I meant. This is what I meant. And you can clear up some of those miscommunications. The other thing in the active listening that we have to look out for is worried that what that other person's doing. And sometimes we can think, oh, they're not going to listen anyway, or we start to think negative things about that person and the way that they're interacting with us, or they don't care about me, or whatever it happens to be. You can fill in the blank with the thought that you might happen to have when you're speaking with somebody. So active listening, it's hearing what they're saying, repeating back what they're saying, and then getting clarifying statements back from them to ensure that, you receive the message or not.
Absolutely. And I would like to just give an example. If I could be the person that's been assertive, and if you could be the active listener, so we can model this before our audience, our virtual audience here. And so I would like for you to take the trash outside on Wednesday.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you would like on Wednesday for me to take the trash out.
That is correct. And so that's as simple as that. Being assertive is asking for what you want, and active listening is being able to paraphrase what you understand that your spouse wants or needs. And that's important that we be able to do that, and that we won't have to play the guessing game as in terms of what our spouse expects or needs from us. And that's very critical. Then it boils down to a lot of conflict resolution. You don't have to worry about unnecessary fights or arguments over misperception. You understand exactly what your spouse is conveying. Yes. And another good thing is this ensure that you care about what your spouse cares about.
That's one of the things that I will say I learned. I don't remember where I picked it up, but we talked about either being a joy giver or a joy taker. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest things to be a joy giver is to care about what those in your life care about, whether it's your spouse, your kids, your friends, your coworkers, things like that. It's care about what they're invested in. Because if you care about what they're invested in, whether you care about it or not, maybe I know the chaplain knows that I love working with wood. He may not really like working with wood, but every time he's with me, hey, what are you working on? What are you doing? He's always investing into bringing joy into my life to let me talk about a project that I'm working on, or in the same situations, with the things that the chaplain cares about, and me saying, hey, how's the Protestant services going? How is your wife? How is your family? Things like that. Just the things that he is invested in and caring about and taking care of. Because when you it's feeding them joy. It's feeding them happiness by feeding into what it is that they like. So whether you like it or not, giving them an opportunity to know that you care about them and you know what they love, and you love that they love that, can be a big conversation starter, and it can be a big relationship builder.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, certainly. Another good tip we would like to provide in terms of communication, when you're communicating with your spouse, it's important to have that openness, that honesty attached to it. And what is critical in terms of allowing your spouse to be open and honest is that they will not feel judged, or that they will not feel as though you will reach back into the past and take what they provided to you and use it against them in the present. So I call that hitting below the belt. In boxing, it's a violation if you hit below the belt. And if your spouse is open up to you about a fault or a failure or some misbehavior in times past, and you bring that back up in today's argument, that causes some degree of distrust, and he or she will be reluctant to be open and honest. So you want to foster an environment within your relationship that's conducive for honesty. And so you got to have that willingness to forgive, that willingness to allow grace. And then that way your spouse will always feel open and that it can always share with you, not fear consequences.
And the other thing being open and honest does with you is I like to describe it as when you have unforgiveness for yourself, for somebody else, it's a hook. It's the hook of unforgiveness. And when you have that hook of unforgiveness, what it does to you is if any of you have ever been fishing, or you know about fishing, you toss your line out there and your hook, it hooks a fish and brings it in, right? Do you want to be hooked by that unforgiveness and be stuck on that fishing pole for the rest of your life? If you choose to hold on to those past grievances, what you're doing is saying is, I'm going to be under control of those past grievances, and I'm not going to come into the current situation that we're dealing with an open and clear mind. And so allowing that forgiveness pulls you off that hook and allows you to move into the future and move past that past grievance.
Absolutely, spot on. I love this statement that my grandfather made to me when I was a young kid. He said, concerning me, because I just talk a lot, he said, son, there's a reason why God gave us one mouth and 2 ears, so that you could listen more and talk less. But what if in the marriage context, if we were more suited towards listening than speaking, to really hear it out the heart of our spouse and to ensure true understanding? And if we were slow to get angry, now how could that be helpful? I think a lot of conflict would be diffused just by listening more and being slow to get angry, just really trying to understand the heart of your spouse. I think it would diffuse a lot of matters that cause us great conflict.
I know a lot of times when I'm meeting with folks, we use this system of stop, slow down, think, and act. Oftentimes when we get into a situation, if it's a pretty heated situation, our adrenaline can start pumping, and we can start having issues that don't need to be in that conversation. So one of the things, the first thing you do is you just take a second, stop, take some breaths, and just slow this whole process down. And so we slow it down and just listen to what the person next to us is saying. Hear them out. Be slow to speak to them. And then in that process, if you feel yourself starting to get angry, it's being aware, using that self-awareness of I'm getting angry, or I'm getting frustrated, or I'm feeling like I'm not being heard, or I'm not being validated, or things like that. But if we stop, we slow down, and we start thinking about those things, and then we process those thoughts all the way out, then after we think, we can then act and know that hopefully we have taken our thoughts, processed them enough to where we can have that conversation without the prejudgments, without the past mistakes being brought up in the conversation, without all those things that prevent us from conquering what I would say the wall in front of us, that problem in front of us is that wall. To be able to conquer it, go over it, go under it, go through it, whatever we have to do. But we just have to stop, slow down, think, and act.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Major Barry, too, I would like to just point out to our virtual audience here that when you get to that point in place, if you get to that point in place where you and your spouse are feeling somewhat emotionally flooded, you have resources. Mental health, you have the chaplains, family advocacy, the military family life counselor. You have advocates right here on this base that'll be a great tool for you and your spouse to use to help diffuse some of these situations as well. Thanks for watching our Marriage Monday video. We hope that you will watch our next video on June 1st. Please stay tuned for the upcoming topic.